Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So we got a Ford E150. It's a van. We're going to be doing rear pads and rotors. So I just figured I'd go through the process of replacing these guys. Now I've done a lot of videos on brakes, but I've never done this particular van. So this may be helpful to someone, so I'm just making a video about it. So the first step in this process is I got you guys behind the caliper. We're going to be removing these two caliper bolts. They're quite simple to remove, but you'll notice that one of them does not come off all the way, and that would be the top one. So I'm going to go ahead and get these loosened up, and then once I have them off, I'll show you what I mean with the top one. Now that I went ahead and I loosened my caliper bolts, you'll notice this one comes off. This one doesn't quite come off because you have a leaf spring in the way. So you just normally loosen this and you just kind of leave it in there. You got to remember that you have to put it back when you put the caliper on, because if you don't, you're going to be taking the caliper back off just to insert this. So don't forget it, guys. Now, the other step that you're going to do while you're here, you got to remove this brake spring. The way that I find to remove these is I just kind of break them off. Now, to be honest with you, I never reuse these. You shouldn't reuse them. Like, this one has no spring tension whatsoever to it. I would not recommend trying to reinstall this. This is what they look like. Luckily, most brake pad kits come with new ones. So check your brake kits, make sure that you guys have them. If they're not in the brake pad box, if you bought some cheap pads and they don't come with hardware, you may want to reconsider getting the better pads. Next stage in this, guys, once the springs are removed, is we're going to remove the caliper. Now, the way this works is it's like a hook design. This one you pull back and it comes out from the top, kind of like this. The passenger side one, if you're doing the rear, kind of comes out like this. Now, these are being held on there because the caliper piston is super tight. I'm going to take my screwdriver, put it in this hole here, and I'm just going to pull on my screwdriver just to lightly compress the piston. Now, you guys will see when I compress that piston in there, it does have a tendency to want to come off. Now, what I do with these is I just kind of take them over and I loop them around and I lay them on top of the leaf spring, kind of like that. So you're going to want to go underneath here and upwards, and make sure when you put it, you go back underneath and through the leaf spring. Otherwise, you will run into a bunch of issues. Now we're going to be removing the caliper bracket bolts. You want to break these off with your box end of your wrench. And then if you have a ratchet side, you can go ahead and just ratchet them off. The top one, it's really hard to fit a power tool in here. Otherwise, normally I would use my gun on this, but you can also just use manual tools like I'm doing for right now. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you the caliper bracket here and how to remove these pads and prep it. So what you're going to want to do is just slide these pads off. Now these can be a little bit of a stinker to get off, so I tap them and they normally come off. It's almost like you got to get them off in a weird angle. That's just what I find works. Same thing on the other pad. Just go ahead and tap it off. Once you get your brake pads off, what you want to do is remove your clips. Normally take a screwdriver and just push down on them and they come off just like that. They're pretty simple. Now these do have sides, guys, and I'll show you that in a second on reinstallation. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and clean up these areas and put my clips in there and then explain how they go in. Okay, so now I went ahead and I cleaned up my areas where my clips go for my brakes. One thing I want to show you is that these are different from top to bottom. If you guys watched the video for the front brakes on this truck, you'll also notice that it has sided ones. So the way you basically line these up is you'll notice that each one has a corresponding cutout right here. I don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but in the back you can't really mess up because these tabs are a little bit offset, and if you put the wrong clip on the wrong side, it won't let you push it on there. Now if you do take something like a hammer and you really pop it on there, you will get it on, but it's foolproof. It does have these little notches to help you, and they kind of help center them. Now that we pushed our clip in, now on these I don't grease the bracket underneath. There's no need, this clip is fixed. What I'm going to do is take some grease and put it in right here. The way I do that is I have a brush and I'm just going to go and put it where my brake pads and where my clip for my caliper are going to be, and then I just like putting some here. Now I know this looks very sloppy. I'm not doing that on purpose, just these brackets are the worst. Now you just want to layer it in there and get everything nice and lubed. The reason why you want to have a lot of lube here, guys, is you want to make sure stuff moves freely. I went ahead and I installed my brake pads on here. Just be careful not to touch the inside of the material with greasy hands. The way that you want to put them in, on the back side it's very easy. They just kind of pop in and slide in. For the front, you want to go in at an angle. Now I didn't show you guys because I am running a little bit low on time. Today's a very busy day and I'm just trying to get this video in because these are really unique brakes the way Ford does it. They're not like the conventional style that we see now. Not that they're different in a lot of ways, just the way the calipers and the pads and everything kind of get held onto the bracket is a very wacky way that Ford does it. Now that you went ahead and you removed your bracket and you prepped it, you're going to want to remove your rotor. These typically come off. Now, this does have an emergency brake setup, so you want to do is kind of rock them side to side, top to bottom. Once you give it a little bit of rocking motion, they will come off. Now, this one doesn't work well with the hammer, guys. You can try beating these on if they're frozen. However, this one's not frozen. It's just the inner brake pads for the parking brake that hold it in place. These guys are basically keeping some pressure on there. So let me grab the new rotor and I'm just going to reinstall it by pushing it on there. Now we already replaced our rotor previously, you saw it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our bracket and you're going to line it up and start bolting it up. These are very easy. I start off with the bottom one because it'll help hold the top. If you just go for the top one right away, it's kind of, just a little bit more challenging. I always start these off by hand. You can probably fit a ratchet in here, like a power tool ratchet, if you really want to make this job go by quick. But I didn't pull that tool out. I normally just do these by hand. I just basically hand tighten them and then I torque them on there. So let me get that done and I'll show you guys the next stage. Okay guys, so now we're going to be servicing the caliper. This is your bolt on the top one that's supposed to stay in there. You want to go ahead and pull that out. I just put them to the side on the leaf spring shackle here. It's kind of a nice convenient little holder. And then what I do is I'm going to grab my caliper pusher and I'm going to start retracting that piston in. I use this tool. It's like a lever style. It's very nice and convenient. So all you do is squeeze it. It's kind of like a silicone gun. I'll probably make a video on this. I am planning on doing a series of videos of just tools that I use commonly every day that are very, very helpful. And this will be on there. So one thing that you want to pay attention here is that this caliper boot didn't really go in. So you want to make sure that you massage it in there. You do not want the boot on the piston because what will happen is when you hit the brakes the first time, it's going to cut that boot open. You're going to get dirt and dust inside your caliper. Now the next thing that you want to do is check your slides to make sure that these slides are operating good. And what I do on these is I basically pop them. Now it's very hard to see, but you want to pop them through the other way and then just kind of push them in. Now I apologize because you're not going to be able to see much of this, guys. And you see I popped it through. Then you're going to want to pull it through the other side. And you can choose to take this out and clean it up. Now these are pretty clean. They're not really dirty. And then what I do is I take my brake grease and I take it and I just kind of go in here in kind of a rotating pattern, kind of a circular motion just to get some fresh brake lube in there. These don't really have a lot of lube in there because they tend to push it out. As you'll see here, notice when the new head comes out, it basically pushes it all out, or it's in the center. When I push the bolt in through there, what I do is this basically. I will just push this through, comes out, I get all my grease out, and before I put my bolt in, I'm going to go ahead and clean that up. You want to do that on both sides, and once you do that, what you're going to want to do is take your brake grease and get it on the caliper piston, just anywhere that you're going to be getting metal to metal contact. And also you want to lube up the ears on the inner side where the brake pad will contact. You don't have to put a lot here, guys, just enough to, give it a little bit of a film. My brush is near the end of its life here, so she's really just picking up a lot of grease. It's this whole brake job looks like it's very sloppy, but it's just because I don't have another brush and the brush is kind of going everywhere. Let me go ahead and get the caliper serviced on this other pin, and I'm going to get it attached to my bracket, and then I'll show you the next step. So I'm ready to put the caliper on, and I kind of zoomed you guys out so you can kind of see what I'm going to be doing here. Let me see if I can correct your angle. I think that looks a lot better. Now, my caliper is hanging out here on the leaf spring, and remember, I tucked it in from underneath. So you're going to want to grab your caliper with one hand, slide it up underneath, and then what you're going to want to do is make sure that your pins are pushed in all the way. Now, this one, if I'm not mistaken, should go top first and bottom last. You want to slide this notch and this notch behind the bracket. These can be a little bit tricky, especially with these pins, the way they want to fight you, but it's not impossible. I'm going to try to do this here in real time. I just kind of got to move around it just to see, but I know I'm going to be able to get it. I just got to play with these pins. So just give me a second. You'll kind of see the process now. These things are fighters. They do fight you almost every step of the way, but as you guys saw, basically I was able to notch it. I lined up my bottom notch and then just lined it up here, and it all went together. Now that you have your bolts in place, what you're going to want to do is tighten them, guys. I will tell you this, I normally do these hand tight. There's no way to really get a torque wrench in the back here by this leaf spring. If you can figure out a way to do it, by all means go ahead and torque them. However, I just do hand tight. You want to be very, very careful. These bolts will strip out fairly quick. Now, I'm starting the bolt off by hand, and I use my ratchet to put it in place. And I just keep ratcheting it until she gets there. And once it's there, what I do is I take my wrench and I just go about 15 degrees. You know, like if you're going from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and that's pretty tight on there. That's tight enough. Once you've bolted up your caliper, now don't mind the slurry of brake lube, guys. These can be a little messy. What I do in the end is I take my rag and I just clean up the bracket. My brush is on the fritz. That's why this job looks like it's kind of messy. In essence, most of this does wash away. This lube that I use is formulated for brakes. You just want to make sure you don't get it on your friction material. As far as everything else, just get a nice coating on there. So now the last step in this, once everything is tight and everything is attached, don't forget that you have to attach your brake clips. These are very easy to overlook. I'm going to try to do the bottom or the top here with you guys just to kind of show you how it's done. Now I will need to add some extra light here, so it will get pretty bright. I apologize in advance if you guys can't see much. You're going to have a little bit of glare right there, guys. So the way I like to attack this is I just use a screwdriver, and then what you're going to want to do is push your outer pad out as much as you can. Usually you'll have a little bit of room in there, just like that. And then inside here, you will notice, and I should probably show you on a brake pad. I'll show you in the end what you're looking for. But you're going to take this one end, you're going to drive it in there and put it on the notch that it already has in there. And then you're going to do the same thing for the other side. Now, it's very difficult to do it the way I just tried doing it. So my tip for you guys, and I kind of have to block you guys here, is put the front one in first, because that one's harder to put in for whatever reason. And I will be needing two hands here. What you want to do is kind of compress the clip. Now, these will always fight you. If you don't get it the first time around, don't worry. Just keep doing it and keep trying. Like, these still fight me till this day, and I've done, hundreds of them. They're not as common as they used to be, but, they're still out there, guys. So as long as they're out there, I got to do them. So now that we have the two tabs lined up on there, what you want to do is grab your spring, and you're going to want to push up and line it up on this tab. Now this is going to be very difficult. Once I have it lined up, oh, I lost it there. Let me line it back up. And then you're going to want to kind of hit it with a screwdriver just to kind of line it up. And then you want to make sure this raised portion is in the middle. You don't want to have your spring in between. Sorry, I kind of bumped you guys there. And then you just want to push it in. Now this has to snap. If you do not hear audible snap, you did not put it in all the way. Now mine still hasn't snapped. I'm going to change my tactic here. I'm going to use my little screwdriver, And reason why they don't like to go in is you got to make sure that they're spread in between that wedge, and then you can get them to go in there. Let's see here. All right, and it is in. Now this one didn't really snap, but it went in there. It's real easy to put in once you see it for yourself. I know over the camera it's not as easy to show. Now I'm gonna grab an old brake pad because all of my new ones are installed, but what you're looking for when you're putting that spring in there is this little kind of drill mark. It's a little divot in there. That's where the end of that spring goes, at least on the pad when it's attached to your caliper bracket and everything. So once you do that, your brake job is pretty much done and this thing is ready to hit the road. So this truck is all set. We got everything tightened down. All I gotta do is put the tire and she's ready to go down the road. So I know this video has kind of been rushed, guys. I haven't had time on this truck. You'll see in the front brake video and the rear brake video that we're doing now. I've been on a little bit of a time constraint, so I've been doing things fairly quick. It's a very busy day at the shop today, and you know, it's tax season. People are spending money fixing their cars. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully I covered enough to, you know, show you guys how to do this. With that said, please comment, like, and subscribe. It'll definitely help my channel grow. And I just want to say, have a great day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next repair.